Hi, I'm Diana Fairbanks, and this is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm kind of awkward at it, but I'd like to teach you at this time how to paint one of the back roads of Washington. This is the first of a series of 6 of these lessons, and they're taken from a book that I wrote, and unfortunately, this book, I'll show you what it looks like, is out of print right now. The good news is that means we can use this for painting, and we can use the text and the pictures from it. We have permission to do that. So this is me, Diana Fairbanks, and I wrote this some time ago, and it was huge fun. We had to go all over the state and look at everything. You will see little excerpts from this book published in a soon-to-be republished title called West Coast Byways by Motorbooks. So that's kind of interesting that it's coming back, but this is the original book. Now, if you are watching this lesson, it's because you got it with a kit of materials to do this painting that I'm going to demonstrate. And the purpose of this tape or this video is to show you exactly in real time how this works. So this is going to be kind of slow in places, and there are also periods in this painting process where you will need to stop and let paint dry. And I will tell you when that comes up, and you can turn off the video if you want to and then come back to it. Or you can watch the whole thing and then take on this project. Now, if you got this kit, this is what you got. Let's just show you this. You got a piece of watercolor paper, and it has a sketch on it, and it also has a color wheel with some watercolor dabs of painting on it. And you also got a brush, and you got the USB or thumb drive that you're watching this video with. There are some other things you're going to need to finish this painting. You'll need a little container of water because this is watercolor. You'd like to have some paper towel or tissue around. And I would recommend, what I've done here is I put some plastic underneath this piece of paper. Let me just show you. So that if I'm pushing the paint on this paper and I accidentally have the paint bleed through, it won't harm the surface. I should tell you that I'm also wearing my Lucky Painting shirt. And by that I mean something that's pretty well ruined. You see, I've got paint spots on it already. It's an old Mickey Mouse t-shirt, and I always use it for painting because I don't have to worry about my clothes, and I feel very comfortable and happy in it. So that's a good reason. Now, let's just talk about how we're going to go through this lesson, because there will be some times that it goes real slow. Besides the kit, you got some other items, and we should look at those too before we go any further. you got a series of papers. One is an example of this painting with all of the parts and pieces done. And if nothing else, you can refer to this to see the steps that you need to take to finish this painting. It's a little 8x10 painting. When it's finished, the outlines of the paper that you're going to be using, the actual painting surface is 8x10. So it goes in an 8x10 frame, and it comes from this picture in the Backroads of Washington book. Just a minute, I'll show you in the book. And it's a picture of Sherman Pass. So in each lesson, there's going to be this kind of information. So you can always go back and look at this stuff as stills if you want to, without needing to. I can't seem to find that picture. Without needing to refer to the tape. There we go. So this is the original in page 134 of the book. But you have a printed copy of it in your materials. And the reason that we're going to start with this lesson is that it teaches an idea that is very useful to watercolor painters. And that is the concept of aerial perspective. It also teaches you how to paint evergreen trees, which we seem to be doing a lot of here in Washington State. So besides this pictorial guide to the steps, there's also a printed description of them. And it keys to the pictures. And there's the text from the book. I really hope that someday you go out and drive these back roads and see these places after you painted them. And that's why it was so much fun to write the book and so much fun to use the pictures in it. So this is your whole kit then. A piece of watercolor paper with a sketch on it, some dabs of watercolor to use, and some instructions, a guide here. And what you need, again, is a waterproof surface and maybe protected clothes. You need water, you need some kind of tissue or a paper towel, and you have a brush that you will use, and you might need a pencil too. So let's think about getting started here. I have some reprints of this guide. There we go. So this is a photo from the summit of Sherman Pass. Distant mountains are hazier and bluer than closer mountains. This effect is called aerial perspective. Things that are closer, like the trees in the foreground, have more texture and are darker and more colorful than distant things. This is to reproduce the effect that our atmosphere gives us when we look at things in the distance. And there are lots of places, not just Sherman Pass, but lots of places in Washington where you could use this idea if you were painting the scenery in Washington. So let's begin. Step number 1. Oh yeah, this will be fun. Put water on blue and purple paint in your paint selection. Mix a mostly blue puddle to put across the top of the sky. Then add water and spread it down to the top of the first mountain. This is to imitate an effect that we also notice on the rare days when we get a clear blue sky in Washington State. And that is that as we look up from the horizon, the sky gets bluer. And as we look down towards the horizon, it gets paler, a little more white. The reason for that is has to do with the way light scatters in our atmosphere. When we're looking up, we're looking through a thinner layer of atmosphere than when we look towards the horizon. And that's why the color seems darker. So let's get that illusion going. Now, you want to gently peel off the plastic that covers the paints. And you might want to hang on to this because there's a little bit of paint on it. And if you run out, you can get some more from there. And here's some water. And here we go. We're going to mostly do blue on this part here. You can see I'm kind of dabbing off some nice blue color. And I'm going to get fairly dark. See what I'm doing here? And I'm going to start up here in the sky. And I'm going to come right along the top edge of this picture line. And the more water you get into this, the better. And I'm going to roll right along there. And it's okay if I go off the edge. That's not going to be much of a problem. And I'm going to scrub this down with lots of water till I meet the first top of the mountain. And it's okay if I overlap it a little bit. It's not that significant. And if it looks like it's getting a little darker than I want, I can just dab up some of it with a paper towel. So here we go, right down to here. All right, and now one of the things to remember about watercolor is you can put it on, but you can't take it off. So occasionally there are ways that we can make the paper resistant to watercolor, and we may talk about some of those in other lessons. But here, we're going to let the watercolor do what it will and control where we put it. So the sky is actually done now. That's all there is to it. It's possible to get fancy with this, maybe add some white and some clouds, or streak the paint a little bit with your brush. But this is it. That's all we need. Now, there's another thing you should know about watercolor, which is that if you put water next to damp watercolor, the color will bleed into that new water that you put on there. So we want to avoid that. Okay, let's look at step 2. Woo. Add more brown and green to the blue leftovers that we just got wet on the palette, and paint the first mountain. Let it dry a bit. Add a little more green and a touch of brown to the leftovers and paint the second mountain. Add water to blend it down to the next mountain. Let dry a bit. This is kind of like we just painted the sky, but we're going to do this now with mountain colors. So I got some blue. I'm going to add some brown and some green. And you can see the first mountain line here. I'm just going to follow that. I think this could be a little darker yet. A little bit darker. And I'm just going to paint this mountain line right here. One more thing you need to know about watercolor is it generally dries lighter than it appears when you first put it down. And that's all there is to the first mountain range. Now, in this picture, we're actually looking to the west. And that means that we're looking towards the ocean from high up in the Cascades. So that mountain is getting a fair amount of light and atmosphere because it's closer to the water. Now that's easy, one mountain range. We're just going to do it again. We're going to get this same color. We're going to add more green. We're going to add more brown. I would put in just a teeny touch of red, and we're going to do another mountain range. And this has to be darker to make it work. So feel free to romp into it. I'm going to add a little purple just to make sure it shows up for you. There we go. Just fill it in, scrub it in. If you don't exactly follow those lines, no biggie, because nobody's going to be able to see them when you get done anyway. Isn't this great? We can't hurt ourselves. Add some more. Let's just keep on going. Now, it's amazing how this effect works. Things just start looking closer just by making each layer a little darker. All right, see how we got that going? That wasn't so hard. I'm just gonna click this right in here just to make the effect a little bit easier to see. All right, so far so good. Now we're going to do it again, and we're going to do this one here. Let's look at the directions. We're in the second mountain layer now. Step 4. Add still more brown and green and a touch of purple to the leftover mountain colors. Use the side of your brush to dot a row of treetops for the third row of mountains. Now, the closer you are to the mountains you're looking at, the more texture you're going to see in those mountains. And as these mountains kind of march closer to you, we're going to have to account for that texture. But here, we can just see a little texture, not very much. So we're going to use the side of our brush to get that going. So if you look on your materials, you can see we're now talking about this range of mountains right here, and it's just a little rugged right along the top here. So let's do that. Alrighty. Mix some green, put some brown, a little bit of red, maybe some purple. All right. Now we're going to do this. I'm going to use my brush on the side like this. See how that sets up a little texture? And then I'm just going to scrub in down below that. We just need this texture as a silhouette on the top. It doesn't have to go all the way down. Oh, there we go. So okay if this is a little scrubby, and in fact, it's kind of a good thing. It's a little scrubby. We just need something going on here. See how casual this is? This is not very precise science here. You know how it goes? That's kind of fun. And you notice how these mountains look like they're getting closer and closer. That's the whole point of aerial perspective. It's kind of a trick that artists use to convey the idea that some things are far away and some things are close. All right. We've built 3 mountain ranges. Didn't take us very long. So let's see what we need to do. All right. We're on step 5. This row requires some fairly dark green. Use the edge of your brush to make jagged tree silhouettes and use lots of paint to blend this row to the bottom of the page. And we're going to have to let it dry a little bit. Okay, let's go. Oh boy. Let's romp into this. I'd use just about every color on the palette to do this. Maybe a little purple in here. A lot of green, a little red. Oh boy, here we go. Now, I like to work from left to right because, from left to right because I'm right-handed. But see how I'm putting in these treetops here? And again, we're going to kind of count on the idea that this is going to turn out a little bit lighter than it looks when it's wet, which is fine. That'll work for us. A little bit more distinct mountain treetops. And it's okay if parts of it turn out more purplish, parts of it turn out more brownish. all of that kind of stuff actually happens in a real forest, and we don't need to worry about this happening in our artwork, because that actually makes it look more realistic. Okay, see how we're doing this? We're doing this. This is easy and fun. Scrub it in. There we go. Well, we've actually marched our way from the coastal range to the highest part of the Cascades. That just took minutes. This took thousands and thousands of years in terms of geology, but we're done with that part. Okay. Now, while this is kind of setting up a little bit, because again, we want to put some detail in front of it, those trees that we talked about. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we need to start thinking about the trees. Okay, here we are. Steps 6 and 7. This is a quick way to paint an evergreen tree. We're going to use the side of the brush to draw the trunk. And you have some vertical lines already on your sketch, and you can follow those, or you can ignore them because you may not be able to see them very well by this point. Then use the width of the brush to make branches. Start with small vertical X's at the tip and gradually twist to horizontal dabs at the bottom. We're going to use lots of dark green, brown, purple for these, and we're going to try one out. So that's the next thing I'm going to do, is demonstrate how to make a tree. And we're going to use this space over here. This is why we put extra paper on here. It's called a dabble board, and it's feel free to try things out there. So here's my brush, and here's some water because I'm going to need it. Here's the plan. I'm going to get a lot of stuff on here, and I'm first going to start, and it's okay to go over these words. They aren't really sacred here. And I'm going to kind of tap a line where the tree is going to go. Let me just move this up a little bit. Okay, now at the top, I'm going to kind of point the brush up a little bit so you can see it's a nice sharp point. And I'm going to start making X's like this. The top of the tree, the branches are light and they kind of grow up. But then as they get heavier and bigger, they get more horizontal. So probably about 3/4 of an inch in, you're going to be dabbing these as horizontals. And this is fun. You just go dab, 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 dab. Now, trees tend to grow in a kind of a triangular shape, although things happen, so they might not actually do that. So this is just dab, 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 dab. That's why we're practicing this, because it's so carefree. It's huge fun. All right, we've made a tree. A tree. This tree is probably about, I don't know, 15 years old. And it has a lot of purple and green in it. We're going to make a series of these trees across the painting, and this is going to take a little while. And I'd suggest at this point, if this practice didn't take you very long, that you give this painting a few minutes to dry a little bit before you start on it. But also, I think that since there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trees or so across the bottom of the painting, that you skip every other tree so that you can work your way across the painting, putting in trees, and then they can dry a little bit and you can come back and put in others. So let's get started. And I can see there's a line right here. If you kind of lost it, the line disappeared, then you might want to get your pencil and put it back in, but it's not very important. If you make fewer or more trees, that's actually a lovely thing too. It's your painting. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm going to start over here. I have a tree right here. And it's a big one. So this will give me lots of room to practice. And I'm going to do the top of the tree, the X's, and then more. See how this is going? And then more. All the way down to the bottom of the page. And this part is fun. Just dab. Now it's okay if you go off of your square here, because when we put a little mat or frame on here, you're going to see that this looks pretty cool. All the way down to the bottom of the page. All right, tree number 1. We have a bunch of these to do. I'm going to do these in real time. I'm going to skip some trees. Let's see. I'm going to put in this tree here. You don't have to put them all in. You might want to. They're all going to look a little different. The good news about that is that's the way trees grow. So we're not going to feel bad about it. Here we go, down to the bottom of the paper. We got another tree. And you notice how if they're darker and they have more detail, they automatically move themselves to the front of the scene. That's the way aerial perspective works. This is a good skill to have because we here in the Northwest have a lot of these kind of trees. You can see how this is going to work. You just keep on working on these trees till you fill in as many as you want. It's okay if their color changes. They're here in the foreground and they can be just about anything. These trees are even purple, and it's okay. Purple trees work out as well as anything else. Now I see there's a tree. There's a tree right in here, a little one. Now, if you run out of green for some reason with these trees, you can mix up some more with your yellow and blue. And that's what I've done for this tree. It makes a little bit different green than the other greens that I have, but it actually works out pretty well. Here's a little tree. I think we have another little one over here. I'd like to put that one in. It's right in here. Oh, we're getting ourselves a nice collection of trees here. I want to work this one over a little bit because it kind of faded away when it dried. And you can even just do the trees as a brown skeleton if you want to. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to mix up some brown and purple here so it shows up really well. nice place to try this stuff out. And I think we have another tree right in here. And this tree didn't do very well. We're just gonna leave it as a skeleton. This happens out in the forest. And there's some shrubbery around the bottom of it. So our job, as you can see, is to fill in these trees. And if as it dries, you discover that you didn't get enough punch into it, then just come back over it in the same little dab, dab, dab celebration that we had earlier. All right. All right, we're just about there. I'd like to fix one of these up a little bit. This one here kind of got lost in the dabbing. Here we go. Now, you can see that this is not a very precise or scary process. You just keep working until you've added all the trees that you want to. I'm working from left to right because I'm right-handed, but you could go in the other direction. I would skip some trees and come back to them. I would be very happy if every tree looked a little different, because that is the way real life goes. And that's basically all there is to it. All right. If you come along later on and put a nice 8x10 frame on this, you'll see that it looks really nice and doesn't need any further attention. This works. And that's why we don't care if we go all the way off the edge or not. But you might want to sign it. Some people use a marker or a pen to do that. Some people use a brush. This is a nice black pen, and I'm just going to sign it. Yeah, it's not going to show up, is it? Yeah, it's not. You can, if you have a smaller brush, you can use that brush, or you can use a white marker like this. That's not going to work today either. We're going to let this dry before we sign it, and could use a white marker, and one like this would work just fine, but not till it's dry. And you can see a little bit of what's going to happen here. Don't make your signature very predominant, or people will see that instead of the painting. Okay, you get the idea. And that's all there is to it. So we're working on other paintings that in this series, because there are so many beautiful things in the back roads of Washington, and I'd like you to try some of them and then make up your mind to go see them. If you'd like driving directions to get there, that is actually in the printed material about Sherman Pass. And if you're really a geek about this kind of thing, you might like to look up something about William Tecumseh Sherman and his adventures in the Pacific Northwest, because a lot of people don't know that he actually spent some time here after the Civil War. So that's about it. And I hope you enjoyed your lesson. And I would love to see examples of your work. I hope you will send them to Seniors Creating Art or Timberland Regional Library so we can see how they turn out. Thanks very much. It's been great fun to show you how to do this. Bye-bye.